Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to today's event. I'm Jason Gumpert from MSDynamicsWorld.com, and we're here for a session all about using Dynamics GP for sales order processing. Our presenter today is Matt Graerbiel. It's great to have him with us, and as we get started, I just want to note that we do encourage your questions and input throughout today's event. Please look for the Q&A block to the right of the main presentation area in the WebEx window. If you don't see Q&A, look for the question mark icon in the upper right, and that will enable it for you. I know Matt will be leaving some time for questions at the end. So without any further delay, Matt, I'm going to hand things off to you to begin.
Thanks, Jason, and I'd like to just welcome everybody to today's webinar. Today we're going to be talking about sales order processing in GP, and more specifically, some of the limitations that you may encounter in trying to process orders within GP. And then we'll also take a look at SalesPad and how that can be potentially layered on top of the GP environment to solve some of those challenges. So we've got a very brief PowerPoint presentation I'll go through, just kind of introducing SalesPad, who we are, what we do. We'll kind of cover some of those challenges that I noted in the GP environment, how SalesPad addresses those, and then we'll jump right into the demo environment. As far as the demo goes, we'll kind of show the customer lookup, order entry, and we'll go through a couple different order scenarios to show how we can kind of automate and solve some of the challenges that you may be facing in the GP environment. So we'll go ahead and jump into the first slide here. So who we are. So SalesPad has been around since 2003. So we were actually born out of a real distribution environment. One of our owners ran and continues to run to this day a distribution company that specializes in edge banding for office furniture. And he deployed GP in his environment, given it was a robust accounting platform. He felt that it was going to meet the needs of his business. But shortly after the go live, he started to notice some operational shortcomings, like the lack of workflow and visibility of orders once they're entered, how they're progressing through the different queues to get out the door, you know, what's on credit hold, what's in the picking queue, what's the warehouse working on, so on and so forth. So he actually developed a manual workaround with color-coded clipboards that he would kind of move the orders through. And convinced that there was a better solution out there, he actually contacted our other owner, who you see here, Matt, who is a developer by trade. And between the two of them, they came up with SalesPad, and it worked so well, they decided to market and sell it. So fast forward 15 years later, the product has evolved significantly. We now not only have the desktop product, but a whole host of additional products like mobile solutions, payment solutions, warehouse solutions, Edi Connector, and we'll see kind of the product suite in just a second. But just continuing with SalesPad as a company, we have about 100 plus employees. We've been deployed to 1,200 plus companies, 15,000 users. We're located in Grand Rapids, Michigan. All of our staff is right here in our main headquarters, with exception to a few outside sales reps. So today's agenda, like I said, we'll go through some of the limitations as a standalone product in GP. We'll talk about some of the benefits of SalesPad. We'll look at the SalesPad product overview of the product suite, and then look at some case studies, some existing clients that we have, and some of the challenges that we met for them, and then we'll dig right into the demo. So some of the things that we know in the Dynamics GP as a standalone solution is low inventory visibility and insights. So knowing where you have, what you have, where it's located, so that you can make the appropriate fulfillment decisions when you're putting in an order. Having that kind of visibility on the surface is somewhat difficult without navigating to multiple menus to find it. The workflow engine, so there's no real rules-based workflow engine to route and automate your orders to go to the designated queues to alert the appropriate people as they're progressing through fulfillment. CRM functionality, when you're entering orders, a lot of times it's good to be able to recall the conversation and the ongoing dialogue with the client, and there really isn't any of that sort of feel in the GP environment, so SalesPad kind of addresses that. There's also a lot of somewhat inflexible in terms of the screen layouts and how you can tailor it to user specific use cases. User-defined fields, while there are some, it's somewhat limited, and that's another thing with SalesPad. We have unlimited user fields. And then sort of the idea that we have a central location to view all data related to a customer. So pending sales documents, historical sales data, ongoing discussions, related documents, and we kind of create that sort of customer card repository for all things related to that customer all in one view, so that you don't have to again go into multiple areas to find that information. So like I said, benefits of SalesPad. So first, what SalesPad is. SalesPad is a full front-end order entry. We also do purchasing, sales fulfillment, inventory management, and it integrates directly with Dynamics GP. We're talking to the same database, so we're using the same tables in most cases. Where we differ is if you have like a user-defined field, we would actually augment the GP tables with those additional user fields. But we are using the same database, and so it's real-time. You enter an order in SalesPad, that order is immediately recognized in GP. If you enter a new item in GP, that's recognized in SalesPad, and so on and so forth. So it's real-time integration back and forth. Typically what we see clients do is they'll have the operational folks in SalesPad, so anybody entering orders, conducting purchasing activity, any kind of warehouse activity, all those operational roles would kind of exist in the SalesPad environment, and we're just writing that information back to GP where the accountants live to process and post and manage the ledgers. So another thing that we do, enter and process complex orders easily with an intuitive interface. I talked about customizable layouts, the rules-driven workflows. That's something we bring to the table. And then the customer service reps. We put that information at their fingertips. They can easily search and query multiple pieces of data all from one view, so they're not navigating the multiple screens to answer questions for customers. So we kind of bring that all to the table, and we'll look at that in the live demo. So like I said, the SalesPad desktop product suite over the 15 years we've been around has really evolved. So we're not just the desktop application for customer management, order entry. We also have a data collection component that allows you to do warehouse management functions. We have a couple different shipping solutions. We have mobile solutions that you can deploy on an Android or an iOS device if you need mobile sales support. We've got payment processing capabilities. We've got some light manufacturing capabilities, and then also, as I mentioned, EDI and web portal. Now, when we go through the demo and I show kind of the order entry and workflow scenarios, we'll also kind of double back and show how those same tools can be leveraged for EDI orders if you're bringing those through. So kind of keeping in that theme of simplifying, automating, streamlining your solving problems within the standard GP order processing module. We'll kind of talk about how we also can bring in EDI orders as well. So a couple use cases. So one of our clients, Picnic Time, they came to us. They wanted a flexible system, something that had greater visibility and inventory workflow. They wanted something to layer on top of GP because they are very happy with GP as the accounting platform. They just wanted some additional supplemental tools to handle some of the operational challenges they were facing. And so you can see some of the key benefits, visibility into customer information, the order processing, the EDI integration, increased customizable workflows. Those were all big things that are allowing them to kind of function as they need to. So Picnic Time was a great use case, and we're going to see a lot of what they're taking advantage of today. Then the other one, SunMed, they are a medical device manufacturer, and again, they were really after improved workflow, easy order entry, the EDI integration component, the visibility and control that you get with all of the data that we bring to the surface. So that was another use case that we had. And we've got, I believe, a section on our website with more of a write-up and kind of the abstract, the solution that was proposed, and more details on these. But these are two clients that have heavily leveraged the workflow and the order entry, as well as the EDI that we'll see today. So with that, we'll go ahead and transition now to the demo. So I'm going to bring over my application and we'll see this in just a second. So everything we're going to see today is in the SalesPad desktop application, with exception to the Edi Connector. That's an additional module, but I wanted to show that because it just shows how streamlined we can make the Edi orders and how you can leverage the workflow tools to process Edi orders just like you would an order that comes through over the phone or email. So first thing that we're looking at here, this is the customer search screen. And we give you just a number of different ways to find the customer. So when you're getting ready to enter an order and you need to find the customer, we try to make that very simple. So we have these auto filter rows at the top, or excuse me, wildcard search boxes at the top. And so you could plug in a value like, let's say auto, and it will return all the customers that have that word auto in it. So it's a wildcard search. It's just going to look for any record that contains that. So that's helpful if you don't know, the name of the customer completely. You just know a partial bit of information about them. You can plug that in. You can also use these auto filter rows down below, which allow you to quickly filter out column data. So you can say, maybe it's 123 Main Street, maybe it's in the state of Washington, and maybe it's a 989 area code. You can quickly fill out that information in the auto filter row to get down to the specific customer record you're looking for. So just starting by the need to find a customer, we make that very simple inside of SalesPad. The other thing that we do is we give you, as I mentioned, unlimited user-defined fields. And so if there's some unique attributes that you need to track related to your customers, specific to your vertical market, you can set up custom user-defined fields. And by right-clicking on any of the columns, you can bring up what we call the column chooser. And this will show you all of the additional fields that you have access to drop and drag in. Some of these fields might be standard fields that I just don't have displayed. Others might be truly custom. For example, I have a field called channel, and this is just a user-defined field I set up to track how the customer came to me. Was it through an email campaign? Was it direct mail? And so I can use this now to filter my list to get me all the customers that came to me from direct mail. These can also be removed, so you can drop and drag them off the search grid. You can also resequence this, so if your CSRs or sales reps prefer to qualify a customer and look them up by zip code first, you can put that all the way on the left. So lots of flexibility. Any changes that you make are only going to reflect on that user's interface. You're not changing any global settings for everyone else. And so this really kind of highlights the flexibility of the layouts and the searchability that we provide in SalesPad. So I'll go ahead and pull up a customer card now, and I'll use Aaron Fitz Electrical. And I'll point out a couple other things that are a big benefit in SalesPad versus the GP standalone. So first of all, pop-up notes here. So if you have something that you want to prompt your CSRs or inside sales staff, we have pop-up notes that you can turn on, and this will kind of prompt the user. The other thing is we load the customers on a tabular layout. So if I need to come back out here and open up another customer card, I can open up any number of customer cards I want, and they'll just continue to open up on these tabs. And so multitasking kind of in an order entry environment becomes very simple inside of SalesPad, because we're just going to continue to open those objects on new tabs so you can quickly sort of toggle back and forth. So now that we've got the customer card open, this is kind of getting into the concept of bringing all that information, all that great sales and customer data to the surface that might be very useful during order entry. Maybe you want to know where the conversation left off. Maybe you want to know a particular item and how many they've purchased from you in the past. Maybe you want to know just general sales data. They're hitting you up for a discount, and you want to see how much volume they've done to see if that's warranted. All of that stuff is kind of visible from this one central location. So I'll kind of break this up into three different sections here. So upper left-hand corner, this is where we typically see the properties. So high-level properties, customer class, price level, payment terms. Now, just like we could customize the layout on the grid, we can also right-click and bring in all of those fields that we want on the customer card as well. Now, typically, layout changes to the customer card would be done by an admin, and they would just kind of set it up how they want the end users to view it. But just wanted to show the flexibilities on the card as well to bring those user fields in. And there you can see there's my channel field with direct mail for that customer. We also do things like tooltips. So again, like I said, if the customer wants a discount, maybe you want to know just last 4 years of revenue to see if it's warranted. All I have to do is hover over the customer number, and I can see last 4 years of revenue, cost, margin, freight revenue, and freight cost. Now, over here on the right, this is going to show you all of the open sales documents for this specific customer. So this could be a quote that you haven't flipped to an order. It could be an order that hasn't been invoiced, an invoice that you haven't posted yet. So all of those documents are going to be visible in this grid. And just like you saw the customer search grid, I can use the auto filter row. Maybe I know it's an invoice, and maybe I know a particular date. I could plug that in and filter down by a date. In this case, I didn't have any results. Let me clear that. But you can filter down as you see fit and get down to a document. These document numbers are actually hyperlinks as well, so I can drill into that document just by selecting it. And that sales document will actually open on a new tab, and it's going to continue to open a new tab. So if you need to look at several documents and then quickly toggle back to the customer record, you can do that very easily. So now on the lower hand, so that was kind of part 2 of the customer card. Part 3 is divided by this row of tabs, and I'm not going to cover all of these tabs. I'll just hit on a couple highlights, and then we'll jump right into order entry. And again, keep in mind, I have this environment set up as kind of an admin view, so I have everything turned on just so I can show it. But through security, SalesPad has its own security setup where you can actually scale these tabs back per user. A typical user may have 3 or 4 of these turned on that would be relevant to their role. So you can do that through security. But the first tab I want to talk about is the interaction. So again, we were talking about lacking, the CRM lacking within the GP order processing environment. Well, on the customer card, we actually give you a tab called Interactions. And what you're seeing here is a running log of the communication that has transpired back and forth between your organization and the customer. And so I can scroll through this. I can quickly sort this by any of these fields here. This also syncs up with Microsoft Outlook. So if you're emailing back and forth with the customer, it will sync inbound and outbound emails up automatically if you turn that setting on. And like I said, this can be sorted. So if I know it's an email I'm looking for, maybe I can sort by email, and maybe I know pricing was somewhere. Pricing was somewhere in the subject line. I can filter down to pricing, and so now I can drill into that interaction. You can see the body of the emails pulled into the notes section there. We also have a concept called resources, where if there was an attachment, we can see attachments as well. So that's just nice to have this all centralized, because again, if someone calls in sick, you have turnover, an account changes managers, you can kind of pick up the conversation right where it left off, because all of this intelligence is stored within the customer record. It's not, in someone's inbox, in a separate email account. So that's the Interactions tab. We also have visibility into AR, again, if you want to turn this on, and this will show you the aging buckets that you have defined and the current outstanding balance. So if you're getting ready to place an order and you just want to look at current balance, you can take a look at that. You can also drill into this balance inquiry here and see all of the documents that are driving that total. And then from there, you can actually drill into the specific documents. And if you want to email a copy or something like that, you can do that directly from within SalesPad. So if I go to my print option here, I could select a invoice, for example, email that directly out of SalesPad. That will open up my template here. You can have kind of predefined verbiage, and I could send that directly out of SalesPad. So that will send a PDF copy. So going back to the customer card, just a couple other quick things. Item history. So again, when you're, talking to a customer, it might be useful to be able to pull up some item history to see how many of a particular item they've purchased over a period of time. So that's where you're going to, that's where you would go to the item history tab here. This starts by defining how many months of data you want to show. And so in this case, I'm looking at 12, but I can increase that, decrease that as I see fit. I can also check off what type of documents I want included in this query. So do I want to just look at invoices as I have here, or do I want orders and quotes included in that as well? Whatever I set there, I can refresh, pull in my data, and then depending on the item I'm looking for, I can actually go down to my auto filter row here. And for example, I'll type in HD20, and so now I'm filtering down to HD20. So this is the HD20, the quantity that was sold, the document it was sold on, and then I've added a sum total at the bottom there. So in a matter of seconds, I was able to find out, okay, I sold 83 of this particular product to this customer in the last 12 months. The sum and average, you can add all of those through the footer here just by right-clicking. That's a feature that you'll see on all of the grids throughout SalesPad. So a couple last things, sales graph, if you want to view a sales graph and just kind of see maybe some trends, you can look at graphs. It works off of a start end date. You can break this by day, week, month, quarter. You have different plots that you can do, so whether you want price or cost or freight or margin, you can load those in. You also get a table view, and you can export this to Excel if you want to. Last thing, and then we'll go to order entry. So resources, I kind of alluded to that on the interaction. Resources is something you'll see throughout SalesPad as well. So this is going to allow you to attach documents with the associated business objects. So in this case, this is on the customer card. I can go in and select a file. I want to open that copy. This is just kind of a placeholder trifold brochure. But if you have, pricing contracts, maybe it's a and this isn't just limited to the customer card. You can have resources on items as well. So maybe when you're selling an item and it's a chemical and you need a material safety data sheet to go along with it, maybe you store that as a resource on the item. And we have this box labeled transfer, so you can check that off and transfer that as an attachment to the matching sales document automatically for you. So it kind of acts as a sort of document management tool to associate the necessary attachments. So that can be very helpful in streamlining, that process. So, so that was the customer card. I just wanted to kind of highlight that because when we're talking about order entry, if it's something coming over the phone or email, this is typically where you'd start. You'd open up the customer card, and you've got all these great insights that you can access before you get ready to place your order. So I'll go ahead and generate an order now, and we'll get right into the order entry process. So at the top of the customer card, you can see I've got a quote, I've got an order button, invoice, and return. These buttons can all be controlled independently through from one another through security settings. So if you want to grant a particular user the ability to generate an order but not an invoice, you can do that. And keep in mind, these are pulling from GP, so these are the doc IDs I have defined in sales order processing. In GP, it's just pulling them over and giving me access to create them within SalesPad. This is a demo environment, so I have a bunch of doc IDs, but I just like to show that because if you do have a couple doc IDs that you're using for different scenarios, we also give you the ability to see those doc IDs as well, and you can kind of limit those through security settings as well. But I'll go ahead and generate an order here, and we'll see a new blank order open on a new tab. And when that opens up, we actually default in all of the customer header information. So we default in the warehouse, the payment terms, ship to, all of that, so we can get right down to the business of adding line items, which would be done down here. Now, line items, we do have shortcut keys, so you can hit Alt-N or you can hit this new button, and that will launch a new line. As you begin typing an item SKU in, if you tab off and you get a partial match, we actually automatically launch our sales inventory lookup screen for you. And this is not only useful for giving you additional features to search by, so you can search by description, class, item number, whatever you want really, because you can actually right-click and bring in column, custom columns here as well. But it also gives you insight into the inventory availability. So again, hitting on that other point that we were talking about earlier, the visibility into your inventory as you're entering orders. So for example, if I came down to description, I'm looking for anything that has 100 in it. But if I also wanted to say, okay, I know it has button head in it, now I'm looking at a combination of 100 and the word button in the description, and there I got down to a single item. Now, once you have an item highlighted here, these tabs begin to populate with data below. So you can see I've got an inventory tab. I can see all of my different sites. I can see what's on hand, what's allocated, what's back ordered, what's available. If you're in a multi-bin environment, we do respect multi-bin, so you can see at a bin level as well over here on the right. So just tremendous insight into the inventory availability for the items as you're entering them on the order. Now the allocated total will also load up your allocations, so you can kind of see inventory allocations as well as in-transit transfers. So that will load up, and if you need to make a decision on unallocating a document to maybe make stock free for a priority customer, you can do that all from within this application here. So let me clear that out, and I'm going to add another item here. We'll just add this one. So I added this 1/4-inch washer, and you can see it'll pull in. I'll have my unit of measure here, my price loaded in. So we do operate off a price level, so we'll automate the price level. Or if you're using extended price, that we do support that as well. I'm using price level, so that's why I have that price pulled in. And you can see that I also get insight into the on-hand and available on the sales document once it's added. So I have that quick reference up here. So I'm going to go ahead and add another item SKU here. And this one I happen to know, so I'm just going to plug it in. So this item, when I added it in, you can see that the line item is orange, and that's because this is actually back ordered. And you can see that's verifiable up here. I've got 0 on hand, 0 available. And so if you do have a situation where you're out of stock, we will kind of highlight that and back order that for you. I manually back order that because I have my sales document processing set up a little bit different, but I'm just going to force that back order there. Now when I save this, I can release this to workflow, and because I have one line item that I have available and one that I don't, I can actually do a number of things with this document as I push this through. So in my case, I have a workflow rule set up to actually split this document into 2 separate documents, move the item I do have in stock into a picking queue, and move the item I don't have into a back order queue. And so when I release this to workflow, we'll see a prompt here in just a second that shows that it did recognize a split, and so this is what it's recommending, that I split it to 10259.1, so it's keeping the parent sales document scheme, but it's adding a suffix of .1 or .2 depending on how many splits it needs to run. In this case, there were 2 items, one's in stock, one's not, so it's going to do 1 split here. So I could choose not to split, but if I want to split it, I can hit OK. And then this will actually route those splits to the appropriate queues in the workflow. In my case, it's actually going to show one going to pick and one going to back order because it's back ordered. So then we pick up visibility of that movement through a tool we call Sales Monitor. And Sales Monitor will give you total visibility of your order and all of the different stages that it could potentially go through from the time it's entered to the time it leaves your facility and is invoiced. So in my case, I'm using this particular order ID for today. I've got a new order queue, I've got a review queue, a back order, production. I've got a number of different picking queues depending on the warehouse. I've got a shipping and an invoice queue. So these are the queues I've set up. And then I'm seeing a document count of all of the orders that are in each one of those stages and the dollar value that that represents. So this is kind of a bird's eye view of that workflow for this order. So if I go into we'll go to the pick queue. So if I go into my picking queue and I scroll down, we'll see 10259.1. There's that first split. It routed to the picking queue automatically for me because I did have stock of that item. Can you hear me okay again, Jason?
Yep, you're back. And we did lose your screen there as well. That was about a minute.
Okay. Is it on the Sales Monitor? Can you see that okay?
Yeah, now we see the Sales Monitor. It froze about 60 seconds back, though.
Okay. I'll kind of go back to what we were talking about there. Yeah, so I entered that order and released it, and by virtue of one item being back ordered, one item being in stock, all I did was release it, and it knew to put one of those splits, the back ordered item, into the back order queue. So 10259.2, you can see there it is. It's in my back order queue. And if I go down to pick 10259.1, the other split is automatically routed to my pick queue. So just by entering that order and releasing it, my workflow engine identified that there were 2 different items, one that was in stock, one that was out of stock, recommended a split, and then it routed those splits to the appropriate queues. So that's kind of one workflow scenario. You know, instead of maybe printing it off, sending it on someone's desk, or sending an email to the purchasing staff, we can actually just have you send that out to your workflow, routed appropriately, and then all of the notifications will go to the appropriate people. So most of our clients will actually have either a person or a department assigned to each of these queues, so they know exactly what they have to take action on. So warehouse is looking at the pick queue, management's looking at the review queue, looking for exceptions, purchasing is looking at the back order queue, so on and so forth. Now, as I released that order, another thing happened, and that was a notification actually went out to the customer. And so I'm going to bring over my email here. I'm set up as the customer, and so you can see there's 10259. There's the order confirmation that went out with the item identified as back order, the other item in stock, and then I've also got my PDF copy attached there. So I didn't do anything to print a PDF copy. I didn't send out an email. All I did was release that order, and all of those things kind of happen in the back end. So it's really kind of automating that for you. So that was one scenario. We'll go through a couple more scenarios for order entry here. So I'm going to go back to my customer card and we'll do another order. And this time I'm actually going to do 3 different items and kind of show you that we can also do different fulfillment locations assigned at the line level and then split those and route those to different queues as well. So I'm just going to plug these item numbers that I have for this example in. So item 10009, you can see that I'm actually out of stock at this particular warehouse location. So I can actually select sales line availability. This is an additional plugin, and this will show you all of your different sites and the stock that's available if you do have stock available. So I happen to have quite a few in here, but I'll scroll through and see if I've got stock in another warehouse queue. So I can see I do have 498 in my south warehouse. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. And you can see that the line updated to south warehouse. And now that it's south warehouse, you can see, okay, there's the on hand and available. So I'll go ahead and add another line item here. And you don't have to know the SKUs. Like I said, you can use your sales inventory lookup. You can also begin entering your description on the line, and it will find the item that way as well. So you get a lot of flexibility on how you add those lines. But I'll go back into my sales line availability for this line, and we'll go through and see if we have any stock anywhere else. So I'll just kind of scroll through here and see if we can find some. So there I've got 348 in my north warehouse, so I'll go ahead and select that. And you can see the line updated to north, and now I've got my available quantity there. And then the last item we'll add here, okay, at my main warehouse it does look like I have stock. So I've got 3 lines, 3 separate warehouses that I'm going to fulfill that from. So if I save this and then release this to workflow, I can actually split on the fulfillment side as well. So I'll release this. And we'll see, do I want to split by warehouse? I'm going to say yes. And then that's going to route the different splits. So there I've got .1, .2, .3. So remember, we're keeping the parent document numbering scheme, but we're adding a suffix depending on how many splits we're doing. I'll go ahead and OK that. And we'll see a confirmation that the first one went to the south warehouse because it's fulfilled from south. .2 went to north because it's fulfilled from north. And the last one went to the main pick queue because it's being fulfilled from my main warehouse. So now if I go back into Sales Monitor, I'll refresh this. We'll see picking south, for example, there's 10260.1. In the main pick queue, there's 10260.3. So it split and then automatically routed those to the appropriate pick queue. And just like I was able to email my customer and attach a PDF copy of that order confirmation, if you wanted to do like a printed pick ticket at each of these warehouses, you could do that and trigger that through the workflow as well. Couple other things. So in the scenario where we have like a management exception or a review, we can help automate that as well. So I'll go ahead and add a couple lines here. And this is a workflow rule that I built in to handle large orders because maybe I want some additional management oversight to verify that they're approved. So I'm going to add this line item here. And what I've defined as a large order in my database is $2,000. So I'm going to add we'll just add 15 there. So we're at 2625 is our total. So that should qualify as a large order. So when I save this and release it, we'll get a confirmation that it is going to the review queue. So large order evaluated, found that it was true because it exceeded the $2,000 limit. So now if I go into my Sales Monitor and go to my review queue, we'll see that 10261, that order I just entered for the HD20 quantity 50, automatically routed to the review queue because it exceeded that $2,000 limit. So these are just some examples, one where we handled the back order, one where we handled different fulfillment locations and how we can split those and route those to appropriate picking queues. This was a large order exception. We can also do things like credit hold. Maybe you want your CSRs to still be able to enter an order, but you want to route it and place a hold on it, put it in a credit hold and notify management. We can do things like that as well. So go through one more example of item entry and how we can kind of speed things up and automate it. So if I go into an order, and let's say we've got an item that has different attributes like size and color, rather than going through and keying each one of those items in manually, we can actually do a matrix style entry from within SalesPad to help speed and automate that up, and that's something that you wouldn't natively get out of the GP environment. So I'm going to add this SKU, and you can see that when I tabbed off of it, it recognized that there is matrix options for it, and so it loaded up my 2-axis grid here where I've got my size and my color. This happens to be a promo t-shirt part number, and so I've got extra small through XXL, and for colors I've got black, red, and green as potential options. So I can simply come in and do quantities for each of these. I can say I want 2 medium greens, maybe I want 3 green larges, and maybe I want 5 red XXL. So I can add those in, and you can see that it replaced that line item with the matching item SKU for each of those choices. So rather than toggle back and forth between my inventory lookup and searching out all these items, all I did was add the root item, tab off of it, launch my matrix, and just plug in my quantities for all the shirts I want, and it populated the line items. So that's just another nice little tool that we have kind of baked into the order entry that can kind of speed things up and automate it for you. So now that we've kind of seen several different scenarios where we're entering an order, something that would be representative of, getting an email order or a phone order, let's just jump back for a minute and kind of look at EDI and how we can also automate and integrate customer EDI requirements. So we do have an Edi connector, and what this will do is actually recognize your inbound 850 documents from your trade partners and convert those into sales documents automatically within SalesPad and GP. And then with that, you can leverage all of these great, functions that we just saw to fulfill those orders. We'll just take a look at this briefly and see what this looks like. So this is the Edi Processing Screen, and this communicates with SBS Commerce as the value-added network on the back end. And this will run as a service and pull in your inbound 850s, for example. I'm just going to manually bring one in right now. I've got this sample PO I'm going to bring in. So I'll start my service. And we should see a document pull through here in just a second with the timestamp on it. And so there you can see at 2:40 an 850 purchase order inbound against, it translated to Aaron Fitz Electrical in my system. The resulting sales order was 10278, direction was inbound, status is processed. So this order should now be in SalesPad. So if I go into my sales monitor, and I'm going to flip to my Edi order workflow, and I have a separate Edi order workflow here, but you can actually use the same one you're using for your email and phone orders. It doesn't have to be separate. But so there's 10278. If I go to my sales monitor, I have the inbound orders dump into a needs acknowledgement queue. And so 10278, there it is right there in my needs acknowledgement queue. So I can open this up, and this is going to look like an order that we've seen so far in the demo. So this has got my header information. It's got the line detail. In this case, they're ordering 3 HD20s. There's the price. It looks like I do have enough on hand. So if I want to go ahead and approve this and move this into the workflow, that will progress this. In my case, it moves it to a ready-to-pick queue. But in addition to moving it to the ready-to-pick queue, because remember, workflow can also trigger notifications and plugins and things to kind of happen in the back end. So in addition to moving that order, let's refresh this. So 10278 is now in my ready-to-pick queue. So in addition to moving it, if I go back to Edi Processing, we'll see another transaction occurred at 241, and that was the 855 purchase order acknowledgement went outbound for order 278. So just by virtue of saying, yes, we have stock of that, move it from these acknowledgement into the ready to pick queue, we automatically triggered your 855 response back to your trade partner. And we can also do the 856, we can do the 810. So all of those document requirements we have set up as plugins that you can deploy in your workflow to automate those as you progress them through the workflows. So that was just another, example of, EDI and how we can process orders and kind of trigger through workflow some of those requirements. Now, just taking a quick peek at the back-end setup for this. So within our workflow engine setup, you can see that we have all of our document IDs over here. And again, this is a demo environment, so I have just a number of them for different scenarios I've had to show. But this is the order I was using initially in the demo. So you can see that you can set up the queue names. So you have total control over how many there are, what they're called. You can determine what the buttons are going to be labeled as. So do you want it to say approved? Do you want it to say completed? Do you want it to say released? You can determine all of that. And then we have a full plugin library. And so you can set the plugin that you want to trigger as a document progresses from one step to the next. And so this is where we get into, talking about the robust rules-based workflow. This is what the back end of that looks like. So we can do any number of things, split documents, run a script. We can convert the line items to a distribution or an inventory bomb if you want. There's just a number of things that you can run. In my case, I was running a smart printing plugin to send the notification to the customer as well as create the PDF print. And then I also had my split plugin running. Some of the rules that I had set up, so I have a rule set up to route to my south warehouse if the warehouse is identified as south, and I'll just kind of show you what the rules look like. So we can, assign a name, pick the queue that we're going to evaluate it in, select the condition ID. In this case, I selected warehouse, and the parameters would be that it equals south. But you can see we have a pretty comprehensive library of different sales document line, condition IDs that you can use and deploy immediately within SalesPad to then begin routing your orders accordingly. So I just wanted to make sure that we did, take a look at the back end of that, because it is quite robust. The other thing that goes along with workflow here in the rules and the plugins is smart printing. So I alluded to smart printing a couple times throughout the demonstration. And this is the smart printing maintenance screen. So this is where we can say, okay, for this particular order ID at this specific queue, when it leaves that queue, we want it to trigger this printed report, and we want it to send to the sales rep, or maybe the billing contact, or the shipping contact, or maybe there's a static email we want to send it to. So this gives you a lot of flexibility on how you send notifications, how you trigger print jobs. So, if you want, when an order splits off and moves into the south warehouse, if you want it to print a matching pick ticket at the south warehouse's specific network printer, you could set that up here. If when an order is identified as back ordered and it routes to the back order queue, if you want a notification to be sent to your purchasing agent, we could set that up here. So there's just a number of things that you can define in smart printing to kind of automate the notifications and print jobs that kind of run in the back end for your fulfillment activities. But again, at the end of the day, it's just kind of automating and giving you that added leverage of operational functionality that you don't natively get within GP. So just to kind of recap it and kind of close this up a little bit, to start the demo, we looked at, customer lookup and how simple we make that with all the different search options and user-defined fields that you can search by. Once we had the customer card open, we showed all the great insights that are right there at your fingertips that prevent you from having to to navigate to multiple menus. Once we enter the order, you could see as we release it, we can automate based on different rules and conditions to hit appropriate queues. And then with smart printing plugins and all of that, we can then trigger notifications. We also looked at EDI and how we can bring an order in from EDI, a trade partner, and then leverage those same workflow functions to trigger things like your outbound document requirements, your 855s, 810s. And these are all things that you wouldn't obviously get natively within GP that really make sales order processing very streamlined, very efficient. So with that, I guess I'll pass it back. We've got about 13 minutes left in the session here. So I'll pass it back to Jason if there were some questions that we can go through.
All right, thanks, Matt. And Yeah, we will open things up to questions now. If anyone has anything, they can enter it into the Q&A, or if a few folks were using the chat earlier, just let me know on the audio. You can use that as well if you would like. It has been a quiet audience though, so I'm not seeing any questions yet. Matt, is there a contact information you wanted to share if people want to follow up beyond today's session?
Yeah, so we've got, there's the main office location and the main contact phone number. We're also SalesPad.net. I believe we bought .com as well, so either one should get you to the site. And we have a rep lookup. So if you put in your state, it will show you the contact to reach out to, the number, the email to reach them at. So you can also do that as well.
All right. Well, let's make a final call for questions here. I'm not seeing any yet. We do have a very brief survey that'll pop up as we conclude today, and we'd really appreciate any feedback you can offer for us at MSDW, for our presenter as well. It only takes 15 or 20 seconds, so it would be greatly appreciated. We've recorded today's event also, and we'll be sharing information on that soon as well. Well, Matt, I think we can begin wrapping up. We do, like I said, have a fairly quiet audience today.
Okay, well, thanks, Jason. Appreciate it. Thanks, everyone, for joining.
Thanks for your time, everyone. That concludes today's event. Have a great day.